Good evening, everybody. This is Betsy Wurzel, host of Chatting with Betsy on Passionate World Talk Radio. The producer is Jeannie White. And I cannot believe it is February already. So happy Groundhog Day tomorrow. And it is Valentine's month. And it is Heart Month. So try to maintain your health. And remember, love always wins. We need to show the love and radiate love. What this show is about tonight, it is nighttime, is grieving. I was going to title this show, I Don't Need Your Permission to Grieve. I'm going to change it to We Don't Need Your Permission to Grieve in honor of all my fellow caregivers that are post and present caregivers that have lost loved ones and friends who have lost loved ones. Folks, I can't for the life of me understand why people think that grieving ends at the funeral. It does not. Grieving, to me, is a lifelong process. And grieving is different for everybody. Everybody has to grieve in their own way, in their own time. There's no time limit to grieving. There is no stopping the process. To me, it's going to be, for me, a lifelong process. Today marks the first month that Matt went to heaven. And I'm doing okay, but I do cry. And not all the time, but mostly at night. That's when it really hits me. And my counselor said that that is acute grief and that is normal. You're riding a roller coaster of emotions. And, we like to get our feelings validated, but we shouldn't have to. How we feel, we should validate our own feelings. And, folks, welcome your grief. Accept your grief. And go for therapy or counseling. I am doing online, it's called Grief Share. It's a devotional type messages that you get in email. It's inspirational, but it also gives you some advice. But it is Christian-based, just to let you know. I also don't understand why people are afraid to be around people that are grieving, why people are uncomfortable around people that are grieving. You know what, folks? I'm going to bring uncomfortable subjects to my show because we need to start getting comfortable talking about the uncomfortable. And grieving, dying, and death, they are uncomfortable. But we need to talk about it until it becomes comfortable. And people say the most insensitive things. Maybe they don't mean to. Maybe they don't know what to say. When I was younger, I didn't know what to say either. I really didn't. But as I have become older and more experienced and experiencing grief myself, I now know what to say and what not to say. Now, I'm going to give some suggestions. Please do not tell someone you understand how they feel unless you've walked in their shoes. If you lost a spouse, then you can relate. If you haven't lost a spouse, you can't relate. If you lost a parent, you can relate. If you haven't lost a child, you cannot relate. Excuse me. My hairstylist lost her son. I haven't seen her since November. I'm going to see her in a couple of weeks. I'm going to tell her I'm sorry and hug her. I wouldn't tell her I understand how you feel because I don't understand how she feels. I don't want to understand that pain. I can only imagine how she would feel, because I could only somewhat imagine how I would feel if I lost my child. And I really don't even want to go there, to be honest with you. I don't even want to think about that pain. And I know people who have lost 2 children. I can't even imagine enduring that pain, that emotional trauma and pain. And folks, please don't tell people, get over it. There is no getting over it. There's no getting over losing a spouse, a parent, a child. And from what I hear, losing a child is the worst. And please don't say to people who have lost children or lost a miscarriage or an infant child, you're young enough, you can have more children. That's very insensitive. Maybe they can have more children, maybe they can't. But that child that passed away is not being replaced by another child. That child was an individual that cannot be replaced, nor can a spouse. I lost my spouse. If I met somebody else, that's not going to replace my husband. It will be another person, but certainly wouldn't be replacing my spouse. So, I hear people say, to people, you're young enough, you could get remarried. They don't say that to me because I'm 62, but for people that are young who lose their spouses or partners, yes, people have said that to them. Maybe they don't want another spouse. Maybe they're not even thinking about that, and it's not going to replace that person. You can replace a car, and, okay, you get another car, you're replacing it. People are not cars. People are not objects. You don't replace them. And I'm probably going to be going in a rant here, but I just have to follow my gut instinct. And, folks, I don't follow a script. I don't have any notes ever in front of me when I do a show. I talk from my gut. And I do what my gut tells me to do, and which might sound crazy to you, but it isn't to me. That's how I fly. I had an incident where a parent said to me, because I work in a preschool, how are you doing? And I said, I'm exhausted. I had just came back from being out. We were out for the Christmas break, and I took 7 extra days because Matt passed away on New Year's Day. And she says, why are you exhausted? I would think you would be relieved. Well, I'm exhausted, I said, because I just went through a traumatic experience of not sleeping well in a hospital and watching my husband die. It's an emotional, mental, physically exhausting, heartbreaking experience. And unless you've experienced it, you don't know what it's like. So I said, yes, I am relieved that my husband is no longer suffering, but I am still quite exhausted. People don't know what it is like to watch someone at the end stage of life if they haven't experienced it. I didn't experience personally end of life until my husband, because my mother-in-law, they found her gone in the nursing home. My father had difficulty breathing and it was gone. I saw people die when I worked as a nurse, but they weren't my husband, so it's totally different. And, it's very annoying when people say to me, I know how you feel, when they haven't gone through what I went through, so they don't know. And, yes, I've lost a parent. And losing a parent and losing a spouse is quite different. Now, people might say it isn't, but it is. It's very different. Now, my son Josh is having a very rough time dealing with his father's grief. I wish I could take his pain away. I can't. He has to go through that grieving process for himself. And, folks, I'm telling you, Go for counseling. Go for therapy. Welcome your grief. Accept it and go through it. And I did read in my grief share that you need to accept it. You need to go through it. Because if you try to suppress it, you're going to have problems. It's going to come back to bite you. And you don't want that. I am going to go to a grieving seminar next week through my senior center. I am going for counseling for free through my township's senior center and also through Matt's Employers Assistant Program. I suggest you look into your township or cities wherever you live. This is here in America. I don't know about countries overseas. And see what they have. If you work or your spouse works or partner, ask about the Employee Assistance Program for mental health. And use it. Use whatever resource you can. Now, the hospice that my husband was in, they're going to offer a bereavement group in the near future. Don't know if they'll call me about that because I was not too happy with their home hospice. But that's another story that I talked about before. I had another incident today where a so-called friend left me a message and told me I should rephrase how I do my awareness now because Matt is gone. And that I should be getting people on board to look for a cure and raising awareness. Well, I told that person, I don't need to be reminded that Matt is gone. I know he's gone. And I'm not a scientist. My mission in my group in #Kick Alzheimer's Ass Movement is to educate people, bring awareness, to inspire people so they can advocate for themselves and their loved ones so that they know they can make it through the other side, to help them make it through to the other side and through their grieving. And not only to thrive, but to survive, but to thrive in this journey. I'm going to tell you, folks, end of life is not for the faint of heart. And when people say to Josh and I, be strong, that's an insult. I feel highly insulted when people say that to me. I do not like it. Now, I'm sure they don't mean to insult me or Josh, but we are strong. You have to be strong to see your loved one deteriorate every day and to watch them die. That takes some kind of strength. So when people cry or they say they're sad or they're grieving, it doesn't mean they're not strong. It doesn't mean that they are weak. You know, we have to stop the stigma that crying is weakness. It is not a weakness. Now, I know I was brought up that it's, weakness and you call it a crybaby. And that is so wrong. We need to be human. And we cry. We are emotional human beings. And for those of you who believe the Bible, the shortest verse in the Old Testament is Jesus wept. He wept when Lazarus died. Why can't we weep? Why is it considered weak? It's not weakness. Actually, it's a sign of strength. It's a sign of strength that you can show people your feelings and that you're vulnerable. And we need to stop all this stigma. And we need to stop being uncomfortable talking about death and dying. Know your loved one's wishes. Know how they want to die, what their wishes are, how they want their funeral service, how they want to be buried. Do they want to be cremated? Do they want to donate their body? and let a person grieve. Grieving does not end at the memorial service, the funeral service, whatever you have. And for those of us who have seen our loved ones through a long journey, mine was 10 years with Alzheimer's. We grieved before. We grieved with every skill lost. But now we're grieving that person is not here. And we feel the loss of their presence. Now, I'm sure grieving is quite different for someone who lost somebody suddenly. They didn't get to say goodbye. They didn't get to have closure. That has to be very, very difficult. A person that works in the gymnastics building, her husband died suddenly on their son's birthday. Their son found their father unresponsive. The person told me, I didn't get a chance to say goodbye to my husband. He was sleeping when I left the house. And she likes to hear his voice on his phone. She feels guilty she didn't get a chance to say goodbye. And she showed me her plaque. And she said she cried at the cemetery. Her husband died 10 months ago. And seeing his name on the plaque, it's like it's so final. And I said, I know, I understand, and it's okay to cry. I cried picking out my husband's plaque. I did. When I went to pick out Matt's plaque, I cried. I sure did. When I did the prearrangements last year, December of 2018, I cried. It's an emotional time, folks. And grieving is an emotional time. And what drives me crazy also is when people say, keep busy, keep busy. Well, I am very busy. But at the end of the day, Matt is not here. Matt is not in our bed. And that's when I feel the grief the most, laying alone in bed. That might be too much information for you people, but that's how I am. And that's when it really hits me. I'm not seeing him sitting on the couch. He's not at the dinner table. So being busy is not taking away the fact that he's gone. And when you keep so busy, you're not acknowledging your grief and how you feel, you're only going to pay for that by probably bursting into a rage one day or having a breakdown. Excuse me. It's not easy grieving, folks. And people might think, oh, Betsy, this is such a sad show. But you know what? It has to be brought to the forefront. It has to come out of the closet. And a spotlight needs to be on grieving and people that are grieving. You know, feel how you would feel. You know, we're not asking anyone to fix our situation. It can't be fixed. And I'm going to tell you what caregivers want, or even people that are grieving want. They want an ear so they can talk to you, an ear to hear them without judgment, a shoulder to cry on, 2 arms to give a hug. That's what we want. And if you don't know what to say to someone who lost somebody, then just give them a hug and say, I am so sorry about your loved one, and I'm here for you. How about that? But don't tell someone, get over it. I don't know how people could be so insensitive. I really don't. I don't get it. It just boggles my mind. You know, we don't need to be reminded our loved ones are gone. We know it. And then people are afraid to talk about your loved one for fear it might upset you, as if you don't know that they're gone. Me personally, and I can only speak for myself, I want people to talk about Matt. I want to hear stories about Matt. That would make me very happy to hear a story about Matt. And for people to tell me what Matt meant to them. Someone at Matt's service said Matt was the nicest guy that he met. Another person said that Matt helped raise his children because he was Sunday school teacher for all three of his children. These are beautiful things to hear. You know, someone talking about Matt doesn't upset me. It might bring tears to my eyes because it's a beautiful memory and they're sharing it with me. And it makes me happy to know that people remember Matt. I said at Matt's service, if you want to honor Matt, educate yourself on Alzheimer's or whatever dementia your loved one has. This is a disease that no one is immune from. There is no vaccination. Alzheimer's is an equal opportunity destroyer, any dementia. Doesn't care who you are, what you are. It crosses all status, all economic status, all education. There's people very intelligent that have gotten Alzheimer's all over the world. It is a global epidemic. And I also told people at Matt's service, honor a caregiver in Matt's memory. You know a caregiver? What are you doing for them? What are you doing to honor them? What are you doing to help them? Caregivers do not need your judgment or your criticism. And we don't need your criticism or judgment when we are grieving. You haven't walked a mile in my shoes. You don't know what it was like to see someone deteriorate and to be mentally tortured with hallucinations. For those of you who have walked this path, you know what I'm talking about. And yes, I think of the good memories. But you know what, folks? I also can't get out the image of Matt's suffering. And for a couple of weeks, I had dreams of seeing Matt suffer. I had a beautiful dream this past week that Matt was young again. And he looked so handsome. I also had a dream about my father this week, that I was in my childhood home. And my dad looked great. Sometimes my dad visits me in my dreams. And this might sound crazy to some people, but sometimes I can smell Matt, and I know he's around. And I talk to Matt as if he's right here with me. And I'm going to miss him chattering in my ear when I'm doing a show or interviewing somebody. But folks, grief is a process. And I said this before, and I'm going to say it again. Grief is like clothing. Some days it's heavy, like a coat. Some days it's like a sweater. It's light. It's airy. But it is always a part of you and always will be a part of you. And you will carry the love of your loved one with you forever. I feel Matt's love. I loved Matt right up to heaven's door. I feel his love. I miss his physical presence. But I am at peace that he is no longer suffering. I'm happy he is no longer suffering. But I do miss him. And I will miss him for the rest of my life. And my mom says that she misses my father more now than ever. My father will be gone 8 years in July. For some folks, it gets easier. For some folks, it doesn't. But to tell someone to get over it or not talk about their loved one is so unacceptable. There is no getting over a loss of anybody. And, you know, I lived with Matt longer than I lived with my parents. I was married for 39 years. I've known Matt for 40. We started dating 40 years ago. How do I not talk about Matt? Matt's journey is the reason why I got in my car 3 years ago and started doing videos. I did videos to raise awareness on early onset because I wanted people to know what the new face of Alzheimer's looks like so they could be educated. It is not an old person's disease. It is a global epidemic, and people are getting it younger and younger, and to be aware of it. And then it morphed into, I want to inspire people. I want to help people. This is my mission. And if it wasn't for Matt, I wouldn't even be involved in all this. And, you know, there are people who walk away from anything to do with Alzheimer's or whatever dementia after their loved one dies. And that's fine. I can't. This is in my blood. This is my passion. I am going on with my advocacy and with chatting with Betsy, and I'm doing it in Matt's memory and in honor of Matt. And if people don't like that, well, then you know what? They don't have to like it. I don't care if they like it or not. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing. This is what was a catalyst of me doing awareness. I started off as an angry caregiver, and I'm still angry. I'm angry that the medical system is broken, that people are suffering and dying, and no one seems to care about how this disease is just rampant, and there's no cure. Alzheimer's is over 100 years old and no cure. It is not my job to find a cure. I hope they have a cure. I hope they have a cure for my son's generation because he's at very high risk. And going forward, I really do. But it is my job and it's my mission. It's my passion, my soul work to educate and inspire people. It is what feeds my soul. And I want to say that this month, February, marks the first year anniversary of my group, #Kick Alzheimer's Ass Movement. Excuse me. And I was going to wait until after Matt passed away to start this. But last year, my friend, Lorraine Lepore, gave me the kick and the ass that I needed to start this group. She was watching her sister at the end of life and wanted to do something to help me get this group started. So she was grieving, and that touched me so that a person I don't know who's grieving wants to help me start this group. I had to start it. So thank you, Lori. And Lori and I are the administrators in the #Kick Alzheimer's Ass Movement. All dementias are welcome. If you have dementia yourself, if you have a family member, even if you don't. There are people in my group who don't have anyone with Alzheimer's. They just want to be educated and inspired to help others. How cool is that? We have 376 members. We're not concerned about numbers. I like quality, not quantity. And this is a good group of people. So if you are interested in joining my group, please do. There is no bullying allowed. We have a Kick Alzheimer's Ass store. We haven't made money yet to give any away, but we don't keep. We wouldn't keep any money. It would go to a charity or a caregiver, as we want to give back. I really feel for people who are going through the end of life and dealing with grieving and insensitive people, and then to lose your loved one, and then you have to deal with insensitive people. Folks, you just love up on somebody who lost someone. Yes, they could be moody. They could be laughing 1 minute, crying the next. And, that's my counselor said, that's normal. It's a roller coaster ride, this acute grief that I'm in. It is a roller coaster ride. I could smile and laugh thinking of a memory, and then I could cry thinking of a memory, or something will hit me, or I could look at Matt's clothes and start crying. I even did that before he died. There were times I would look at Matt's closet, see his clothes that I knew he would never wear again. And, it hits you. With every scale lost, caregivers grieve for their loved one. It's something that's hard to explain unless you've experienced it yourself. When you see your loved one lose their skills and to hallucinate, it's mind-boggling. And Matt thought somebody was hitting him in the head all the time. He even thought Joshua hit him in the head, which I knew did not happen. And he always saw big men in the house. And he was always concerned about my safety. And I had to redirect him. It's not easy, folks. It's really, this journey was not easy. But I made it through. And you can too. I'm here to tell you, you can make it through to the other side. And for you to not just survive, but to thrive, you have to have a mindset that only you can decide for yourself. It's a choice. I heard a motivational talk today, and it's about choices. We had choices. You could choose to be happy. You could choose to be sad. And even when you're grieving, you could be happy. You don't have to be sad all the time. It's a mindset if you're going to wallow in self-pity or if you're going to dust yourself off and go on with life. Yes, I could wallow in self-pity, but I choose not to. I was determined to make it through this journey, and I'm determined to enjoy life. And I'm going to enjoy life for myself and for Matt, who can no longer do it. But he's enjoying heaven, and he's better off than I am. And yes, I can say that. That's my belief. To each his own belief, but that's what I believe. So if someone says, well, I don't believe in heaven and I don't believe in God, well, that's your business. I'm not here to discuss religion. I'm just telling you what I believe, what gives me peace. And it's a wonderful feeling to know that he's no longer suffering. And a friend of mine helped me put something in perspective because I felt guilty. Sometimes I would say to Matt, why can't you just close your eyes and go? Why don't you just die already? Because I didn't want to see him actively dying and then to see him suffering because hospice failed to do their job. And my friend said to me, Betsy, Matt's not thinking of that now. He's enjoying the glories of heaven. He's not thinking about what you said. He's not thinking about how he suffered. He doesn't remember any of that. And that helped me. So let's help each other. Let's support each other. Let's help each other through this by being loving and kind and supportive of each other. And if you want a support group that's loving and kind and supportive, please join mine. It is hashtag Kick Alzheimer's Ass Movement. And please read the blogs that Jeannie White writes. She writes beautiful blogs. Please share them. Please read them. Please share this audio cast. You could always follow me on my page, my own personal page, Betsy, Betsy, Wurzel, Wurzel. And you could see my journey. You could see Matt's last couple of weeks of life. I was not ashamed to show his journey's end. I wanted people to see the reality of Alzheimer's and what it does to a person. And I will keep on showing it. And I will keep talking about Matt. And I will always talk about Matt. And I will always honor him. He was my husband, my best friend. And to remind someone that their loved one is gone is so unnecessary. I don't know why people do what they do, but I know now that when someone passes away, I don't say I know how you feel unless that person lost a husband, and then I know how she feels. Or a person lost their wife. You know, just be there for someone without saying anything. Just squeeze their hand, give them a hug, and just say, I'm here for you, without judgment, without criticizing. And why is it that people who criticize and make judgments are the ones who do the least? I said to this person, what are you doing for your family member? You supporting that family member? I don't understand the judgments and criticisms of people. And I probably never will. But we have to go on with our life. And if you want to enjoy life after caregiving, you must maintain your health. You must do self-care. It is essential. You have to put yourself first. Now, I know it's not easy. Believe me, I know it's not easy. Because I had to put off going to the cardiologist and orthopedic doctor until after Matt passed away. So I know it's not easy. But meditate. Try to do as much self-care as you can. Try to take care of yourself as much as you can. Because you know what? Your life, your health depend on it. And look in the mirror and say that you love yourself. We need to start loving ourselves. That's not being narcissistic or selfish. Because if you don't love yourself, you can't love someone else. You attract people of what is inside you. If you're negative, you're going to attract negative people. If you don't like yourself, you're going to attract people who don't like you. I have finally learned to love myself at the age of 62 and to embrace myself and accept myself of how I am. And I suggest you all do the same. Don't wait until you're my age. If there's any millennials out there listening, don't wait till you're my age. Love and accept yourself now. Change what you can change. What you can't change, accept. And pat yourself on the back and say you were a good caregiver if you were one. If you still are caregiving, then say you're doing a good job. And go out there and be the shining star that you are. And don't let anybody put out your flame, your light. You need to shine bright and to radiate love. And that's what I have to say today, folks. Thank you so much for listening. This is Betsy Wurzel, host of Chatting with Betsy at Passionate Real Talk Radio. Oh, before I forget, I want to thank Lillian Caldwell for this radio station and for having people on here that bring out topics that really need to be discussed, need to be brought out in the open. Please listen to these other hosts on all the different subjects. There was a speaker on suicide that was phenomenal. Please listen to Lillian's shows and the other hosts because there is a wealth of information on these audio casts. So please share. Please tell people about Passionate Real Talk Radio. And have a blessed day and a happy Valentine's Day. And keep your heart healthy. Bye-bye.